you remember a few years back when we had that rash of violence against school board members across the country? You know, where parents were assaulting and killing and threatening these school board members. I mean, en masse, all across the country. Do you remember that? Yeah, me either. I don't remember. But maybe you remember, and I certainly do, what you're about to see here. If you haven't seen it, it's important on a number of levels. The biggest takeaway from this is the illumination of what the federal government, specifically the Department of Justice, under the quote-unquote leadership of then AG Merrick Garland, was focused on. What their focus was then. What their energy, their time, their resources, and yes, their philosophy was focused on. Take a listen.
For instance, about the National Security Division. Chuck Grassley asked you a very simple question, why you would sic the National Security Division of the Department of Justice on parents. John Cornyn asked you the same thing. You said it wasn't in your October 4th memorandum, it was in another office's memorandum. It wasn't another office's memorandum, Judge. It was in a press release from your office, right here in front of me, October 4th, 2021, for immediate release. You're going to create a task force that includes the National Security Division. What on earth does the National Security Division have to do with parents who are expressing disagreements at school boards?
Nothing in this memorandum or any memorandum is about parents expressing disagreements with their school boards. The memorandum makes clear that parents are entitled and protected by the First Amendment to have vigorous debates. We don't, the Justice Department is not interested in that question at all. It is
Okay, so even in that case, what is the National Security Division, Judge? These are the people that are supposed to be chasing jihadists and Chinese spies. What does the National Security Division have to do with parents at school boards?
This is not, again, about parents at school boards. This is about threats of violence.
Okay, let me turn to that because you've said that phrase repeatedly throughout the morning. Threats or violence and threats of violence. Violence and threats of violence. Yeah. We've heard it a dozen times this morning. As Senator Lee pointed out, the very first line in your October 4th memorandum refers to harassment and intimidation. Why do you continue to dissemble in front of this committee that you are only talking about violence and threats of violence when your memo says harassment and intimidation?
Senator, I said in my testimony that it involved other kinds of criminal conduct, and I explained to Senator Lee that the statutory definitions of those terms and the constitutional definitions of those terms involve threats of violence.
Okay, let's look at one of those statutes you cited,
yeah.
Section 223.
Yeah.
That statute covers the use of not just telephones, but telecommunications devices to annoy someone. So are you going to sic your U.S. attorneys and the FBI on a parents group if they post on Facebook something that annoys a school board member, Judge?
The answer to that is no, and the provision that I was particularly drawing to his attention was 2261A, which was to engage in...
I wasn't talking about 2261A. I know you mentioned that. You also mentioned 223. That's what I mentioned.
Yeah, but the only
Judge, you also told Senator Klobuchar that this memorandum was about meetings and coordination.
Yeah.
Meetings and coordination.
Yeah.
Well, I have in my hand right here that I'll submit to the record a letter from one of your U.S. attorneys to all of the county attorneys, to the attorney general, to all sheriffs, to the school board association of his state, in which he talks about federal investigation and prosecution. It's not about meetings. It's not about coordination. It's about federal investigation and prosecution. Did you direct your U.S. attorneys to issue such a letter?
I did not. I have not seen that letter.
It's got 3 pages. It's got 3 pages of spreadsheet about all the federal crimes that a parent could be charged with, to include the ones you cited.
The idea that, again, time, resources, energy, personnel, and again, yes, philosophy was spent, focused on American citizens, parents who may have had disagreements with the way a particular school board was operating a particular school district, utilizing their right under the First Amendment to share their grievances, that this was the focus of the federal government under the previous administration, under Merrick Garland. Is this really what we want to be using our law enforcement for? Our local, state? By the way, if anything, it would be a local or maybe a state issue. If you have threats of violence, if you have use of force with any individual, in this case between parents and school board members, that would be a local or state issue. State at the most. Why would the federal government be involved in this in the first place? So the bigger question is, what should the federal government in regards to law enforcement be doing? What is their purpose? Look, any law enforcement should be focused on ensuring the safety and security of the American people, whether it's local, county, state, or in this case, federal. So let me give you an example, a recent example of what the federal government should be and is doing in regards to public safety.
Thank you, Mr. President. What I'd like to do is just highlight some of the outstanding work that the men and women of the FBI have been doing. And thanks to your brave...
And by the way, I'm going to play this about the full 5.5, 6 minutes, whatever it is, because I want you to hear Kash Patel. And behind him, there's Pam Bondi, who speaks later on. I'm not going to play her, but there's the current Attorney General. Here is the current head of the FBI. And just listen, whether you like it or not, let's see what their focus and their accomplishments are in the first 9 or 10 months of this presidency.
Leadership and the mandate you were given by the American people not only defend the homeland but crush violent crime. You tasked us with our great partners at the Department of Justice and the Attorney General and the Deputy Attorney General to start making arrests and bring prosecutions and safeguard our cities. And you said it, this is just the beginning. In just 7 months, I hope the media takes a look at every one of these charts, because these are the best numbers for fighting crime in U.S. history, and it's only 7 months in. And to do that, our vehicle to do it of choice was Operation Summer Heat, which the FBI architected to go after violent criminals. And in just a 3-month span, you had 8,700 arrests of violent criminals. You had 2,200 firearms seized off the streets permanently to safeguard our communities. You had 421 kilograms of fentanyl seized. Just to put that in perspective, that's enough to kill 55 million Americans alone. You had 45,000 kilograms of cocaine seized, and thanks to our Department of Justice partners, you had 2,100 indictments in 3 months, from June to September alone. Mr. President, that in and of itself would be historic for a 4-year presidency. You did that in 7 months because you let good cops be cops, and you partnered us with the right people at the Department of Justice to put the handcuffs on and bring them to court and put them in prison. And if that weren't enough, when you look at the year, for the entire 7-month period that we're talking about here, if you look at the past 4 years of the Biden administration, 16,000, 17,000, 15,000, 15,000. That's the number of arrests year over year of violent felons in this country for the Biden administration. Mr. President, in 7 months, you have 28,600 arrests of violent felons in just 7 months alone, because of your leadership and the dedication of the men and women at the FBI who want to go out there and do the job they were prevented from doing, because that department used to be weaponized and politicized. And this is what happens when you take out the fangs of weaponization.
I kind of wonder, what is the argument against this? What is the argument against taking these tens of thousands of violent criminals off the street compared to the level over the previous administration? Is this not a fantastic thing for the people of this country? I would argue it's pretty obvious, but there are nutbags out there who argue against it.
This number is historic by every metric. 28,000 people have been arrested, violent felons alone. And then when you go over there and look at some of these charts, if you don't mind, I'll just hop over here. Look at the metrics for not just violent crime, but the homeland. Mr. President, during your administration, the FBI has found and located 5,400 children. That is a 30% increase year to date over the last administration. Violent crimes against children arrests alone are up 10%. Gang arrests are up 210% in the last 7 months alone. And transnational organized crime, which Stephen Miller has been a great partner in, is up over 12% alone. These numbers are historic just as a snapshot. But just so people don't think we're focusing on violent crime alone, the national security mission, Mr. President, under your leadership has never been stronger. We have gone after espionage activities against our main counterparts in China, Russia, and Iran. In China alone, we've had over a 50% increase in espionage arrests alone and prosecutions. In Iran, we have had a 50% increase, again, in espionage cases. And in Russia, we've had a 33% increase in espionage cases alone. When it comes to counterterrorism, year to date, we have 125 arrests this year versus 100 last year, year to date alone. And when it comes to the cyber criminal activities, which are some of the largest enterprises plaguing everyday Americans, we at the FBI have put out a mission to go after cyber criminals like never before. Last year, they had in total 191. This year, you already have 252 arrests. 52 arrests of violent cyber criminals who are stealing from senior citizens, who are violating our children's rights and freedoms, and who are violating everyday Americans. These programs are record. And two of the things I'll finish with that I'm most proud of, Mr. President, this FBI. Fentanyl. As you know, it's a scourge that is killing our youth, 100,000 plus a year. To date, the FBI has seized 1,900 kilograms of fentanyl. That's enough lethal doses to kill 127 million Americans alone. To date.
I mean, I just stop right there. Just that alone. And again, these are hard numbers to really, the effects are going to be very difficult to appreciate because you can't prove a negative. We'll never know exactly how many lives will be saved because of these efforts. We do know about 100,000 young Americans overall, were dying every year due to fentanyl overdose. We do know that. How many are going to be saved? We know hundreds of thousands exactly. We won't know, but we know that it's going to be great and it's going to be a result of these efforts.
And if that weren't enough, Mr. President, you said we have to go after the worst of the worst. And you empowered our Department of Justice, our Attorney General, Deputy Attorney General, and the Deputy Director at the FBI, led the charge, not just on summer heat, but he also led the charge in the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives. These people have been on the run for years. And in 7 months, you captured not one, not two, not three, but 4 of the FBI's most top 10 fugitives. 4. And just to put that in perspective, Mr. President, the Biden administration captured 4 in all of 4 years. You're on 7, and we're going to get to 10. We're going to get to 10 of 10. This includes a lady who murdered her 6-year-old handicapped child and fled to India. We got her in 2 months. This includes a narco trafficker. This includes a sex trafficker. This includes another first-degree murderer and gangbanger. These people were on the run because of the prior administration's reckless policies that destroyed our communities, and you came in and with a mandate said, go after the worst of the worst. This is just the beginning. This is what happens when you let good cops be good cops at the FBI. Mr. President, I just want to thank you for your incredible leadership, our brave partnership with prosecutors who know how to bring cases and make sure these arrests stick. And that's what the Attorney General and the Deputy Attorney General have led the charge across this country, because arrests without prosecutions are meaningless. We are deterring criminals from doing this activity. We are preventing criminals from coming into America, and we are absolutely crushing violent crime like never before and defending this homeland, sir. And not to mention, I almost forgot this one, it took you, sir, 2 weeks to get the Abbey Gate bomber. Joe Biden had 4 years to look for him. You got him in 2 weeks, thanks to the interagency effort by the FBI and the CIA, went to Pakistan, and now 13 brave warriors who were senselessly murdered because of disastrous Afghanistan withdrawal. They have justice, their families have a peace of mind, and we're going to continue to find the others, Mr. President. On behalf of the FBI, sir, I just want to thank you.
Thank you.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic. Listen, I want you to share this piece here with as many people as you can, because it gives a stark black and white, indisputable difference between the priorities and the effectiveness of the respective administrations, respective attorneys general, and FBI directors. This is tangible, focused, meaningful work that this FBI, this administration is doing. And we're going to put up more of these comparisons, because this is the best way I can think of, one of the best ways I can think of, to really clearly explain why good law enforcement is so important. And not just important, but it's so doable. The reason that Kash Patel and Pam Bondi and the others in the Department of Justice are able to do these things is because of leadership. They're exhibiting leadership because they have the leadership of President Trump. When you know when your boss has your back, you're able to do what you know you can do best. When you're going to get support from behind and from above. This is fantastic. Kash Patel is doing a great job. Pam Bondi is doing a great job. God bless them for focusing on keeping Americans safe. We'll see you next time in Your Leo Nation.